Hello everyone and welcome to the final day of the PCL, the Chinese Summer Playoffs, at which they'll figure out which teams are indeed going to make it into the PGC, the PUBG Global Championship. Now, it's been a fun season for those of you guys who haven't watched the previous games. Since this is only 5 games, I recommend you watching the previous days, as a lot of things kind of what can you say, evolved over the course of these days. Teams are playing a little different from day one, and if you're new to watching Chinese PUBG, I don't want to, some people say Asian PUBG. That's not true. The Koreans and the Chinese play very, very different. So never just think that if you know Korean teams, then you know Asian PUBG. It's very, very different. And go to Southeast Asia, it's a whole other play style too. So now I lost my thought. But in any case, if you're new to watching these videos, I recommend you watching the other ones first. In any case, we're going to start with this one. Day number 5, the final day of the summer playoffs, and it's the first game to go. Erangel, Sanhok, Miramar, Miramar. That is how it works. 6 games to play, and the first circle we get is this one. Now, is there anything, if we rewind a little, anything interesting that we haven't seen before? Phoenix, they loot Nobo. The alternative is Prim. Why would you go Prim when you're right next to Nobo? So that's not really surprising. One thing that is surprising though is with OMG back out here, and this is what I'm so confused about. LYG, this is the only reason, the only region that I've seen this happen. You would go in a plane like this. Why the hell is there no one looting multi-power? That's because the team, like for example, FaZe, they'll go multi-power, but when they can't get it, they'll go whatever. Normally they'll go down towards either Prim or they'll go on the west side of military, something like that. The team in this league that splits multi-power is the Severny team, and they actually prioritize Severny over multi-power. So they obviously get a plane where they can jump out immediately, so why not go Severny, which means multi-power is going to be open. LYG, your multi-power team is in Severny, in case you don't know. Now let's see. Circle, Pups. It's going to be east. Let me just drink some water. It's going to be east, and more likely southeast. And, well, as you can see, OMG realized, wait, there was no one going down there because they jumped Severny, so they get to take over multi-power instead. Smart reaction play by OMG, because they normally get locked down to pretty much this when they loot up on the eastern side. Normally they would go west, they'd go to Gatka and whatnot, but they normally get locked down to this. So them realizing very quickly that there is that there's more room to take. Nice reaction play by them, and they now have all of this to play from. Vici and Black Ananas, they play the, I don't know, I've never really liked playing Lumber Mill early, because it's again one of those areas with plenty of trees around. You can always go too late. I think it's so much more valuable to have a position in an area that's hard to get something in, whereas to Lumber, you can always kind of push up into Lumber. But they decide to sit 2 teams up on that side. Of course, Vici on the western side. BA try to rotate down over the east. Shark is seen, rotates around. Also, OMG, Shark, it is, oh, what's his name? Shark is another player as well. That's Clouds, for those of you guys who remember Clouds from OMG, who was playing with Lion KK. Clouds, that's Shark now. So he changed name too. Don't ask me why, I don't know why, but Shark is Clouds, and Wellness from 4 AM is Godv. LG playing the east side. They're waiting for that next shift to come so they can figure, do we want to rotate north around? Do we want to wrap around south? OMG sitting in a split that I would argue is a little greedy. Now, if you're watching Chinese PUBG for the first time, then you might be shocked to see this. If you're not, then you will most likely think, huh, just like any other day in Chinese PUBG. The Chinese teams, they do some insane splits. And this is where I think it's going to be so much fun to see them in the PGC. The fact that they, A, do these splits, and B, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the European and American, whatever other region teams, to figure them out. Because they're rarely ever the same. And that's what's so scary. I mean, the European teams, they have, to a certain extent, patterns that you can follow. Doesn't mean that you can kill them just because you know where they're going. But then you say, oh, well, if they split 2 guys here, 2 guys there, we're just gonna get them next time. No, because then maybe next time they sit 2 guys here and then 2 guys here. I mean, it's very rare that they sit 4 guys. I mean, they'll do those 4-way splits, but they rarely ever do the same 4-way split 2 games, not in a row, but like just in 2 games. So, so I'm looking forward to see if, like, how it's gonna work, and even if it's going to work with the way that they've been splitting in during this season. Timon, was he swimming across? No, he was driving off the vehicle. Unfortunate, doesn't work out. DAE, very talented team as well. They're one of those teams that will try and punish you. Like, they rarely ever do those crazy splits. They're like the Liquid of China, I guess you can say. See you, Curry, have a good one. They're more like the Liquid of China. They will pull up and try to punish some of all these rotations that we tend to see. Not sure. I mean, oh, we want to play Shelter? Nah, you know what, guys? I think I'm going to go up to Mansion. And the thing is, as we can see here, the reason they keep doing these things is because it works. They are allowed to hold these splits, and now we get this shift. This is where things become funny, and this gives me some nightmare PTSD thoughts back to a circle we had in week 2 of PEL. And I just want to show you. I mean, this is obviously you're not going to be staying up on the up on Lumber Mill anymore. Even that is going to be not impossible to play, because you can play and most likely you will play up there. But there is so much more to play from down here. Only issue is, how do you get there? If you're Xiao and his teammate making their way down to OMG, good luck, guys. There's going to be 10 billion cars pushing faster than you. So they are forced to crash in. One goes down. Other player does manage to make it to the building, but that's not going to be easy. And the bottom side of things, FPX, they saw that DA was busy with Luminous Stars, so they will just manage to swoop underneath and take this. We've seen circles go down here before, and we know that circle that has to go away from water most likely will contain some sort of water too, because there's so much water in this circle. LGE, they wrap around, they try to go to the hills in the south. QM staying up on the northern side. ARC trying to do somewhat of a split on the east. They realize that this is taken, so they have to go back towards their teammates up towards Mills of Power. Tianba taking boats. They might as well just wrap around underneath, and that's exactly what they do. Chanshan realizes they don't have a boat, so he has to go pick them up. New circle pubs, and I guess you can say this is a pretty fortunate shift, because the next one has to go away from water, and now we excluded a lot of it. It could have centered down here, and that would have made things like just terribly, well, horrible, to be honest. So LG, 4-way split, trying to hold off anything coming through that way and make sure that no one can come up to the beach here. Other than that, I mean, with this late in the game and the position that we're in, it's mainly teams sitting together, but still. The fact that OMG is allowed to hold this with just 2 players in a 2-way split in this, to me at least, very surprising. New circle pups. And this is where you wouldn't even be surprised to see OMG keep this split. Like, I would, if I see this in PEL, I'm going to go, get the hell over to your teammates. Whether they decide to play one or the other area, doesn't matter. Just play together now, please. And they do. So they leave, thank God, playing the northern side rather than staying inside of small Mills of Power, whatever you want to call it. Tianba, they came up late, but because LGE decided to push across, they now have some wiggle room to play on. Vici still has 1 solo player in the 3-story. Can play from in there, and then Obo can play over on the other side. Circle shifts down south, though, and if you look at the split here, 1, 2 players, 3, 4.5. 4.5 teams south, 10 teams are here. And realistically, what do they have to play? 1 building, that's not really a position you can play from. Maybe if you played on that side. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 spots available, and one of them you have to fight for in this circle. So 2. 1, 2, I guess 3 spots you can play in this circle. And we have 10 teams. 10 teams that have to figure out how to share that. This is probably the worst circle you could get for all these teams. Like, they're all just sitting on the northern half right now going, what the actual hell are we supposed to do in this circle? So Ark, they're sent it underneath. They take one of those 2 spots that you could play, knowing we need to really play smart here. And I really like this split from them, because they know, like, once they realize that there are still players inside of small mill to power, they realize if we just sit here and look inward or try to look that way or look that way, these guys will be coming from behind and they'll shoot us. So we need to make sure that doesn't happen. How they do that: park the vehicle safe, send 2 guys over the top, and then they can be the pressure on the up front. But now they get spotted by that angle too, so they're forced to go like crazy hard in the corner. At least though that they help apply some pressure towards Q. And Wu Fang is by himself. Circle goes back down again, and now when they have eliminated Wu Fang, once that happens, they will have a chance to rotate back down to their teammates. So very, very smart play and very nice reaction play by Ark. And again, this is why I put out the tweet yesterday congratulating the team that qualified in first place. They, and alongside, I mean, there's I want to say 4 teams. 4 teams in the Chinese league, 4 teams in this that can really put up a fight on a global stage. We're talking Infantry, we're talking Ark, we're talking 4AM, who in this game are dead, and we're talking Phoenix. And I kind of want to say Phoenix and DAE together, because they despite playing the game differently, they both, I feel like, have what it takes both in fighting and strategic and tactical play, I guess, awareness to go up against opponents. The only thing is, I mean, FPX, I think, is more, what do you call it? They won't have to adapt as much. They don't have to adapt so much because their playstyle fits the European more. But some of the other teams, what gets them to succeed, I mean, also half the games that PGI was in third person. I mean, I think we cannot use a 1-year-old tournament for anything. We cannot use them for anything. I mean, we could also say, oh, but ENCE were so good in phase 1, why are they not qualifying? We cannot use those things for anything. The game evolves so much. If you go more than 2 months back, I think, if you take, you can even go a phase back. If you go back to a phase previously and you go, oh, but they were so good there, why are they not good anymore? So many things change all the time. The meta is constantly evolving. We don't have like a set meta. It's not like League of Legends where 1 top, 1 jungle, 1 mid, 2 bot lane. Imagine if all games, 1 game there's 3 guys top lane. You never know. I mean, I don't think there is. I don't watch a lot of League of Legends anymore. But that's kind of set in stone. I know that there's like macro metas that change all the time. Which heroes do you, or champions do you play and all that stuff. But in PUBG, there's just so many different things, like so many different valuables that you have to put in, and therefore, if you go back and say, oh, but these guys were good a year ago, why are they bad now? The game is completely different. Settings are different, point systems different, values are different, circle setting, just everything. Everything is different. I don't think it's because of anything in particular. It's just the only thing I could say it would be because is the fact that other teams improved faster than they did. They were good in one meta under one system. Now they're not. They were rewarded for passive play. And now they're not. And Ark, obviously, with this position, we saw them claim it early. Said there were only really 2 places you can play in this circle that you hadn't already. Them going to get this spot, just to wrap it up a little faster. Practically, they don't solidify a win here, but they needed to get a knock here, and they get 2. Very important. They needed to get knocks, because if they get out on the building, D7G, if they get up here with a chance to 4v3 them, keep in mind, D7G has been in this building for a long, long time, which means that they have had I mean, obviously, not really vest or helmets broken, but they probably have a billion nades as well. So Ark getting that flush around the side is really impressive. But then you see these guys come around the side, and all of a sudden Uran is all by himself. And that's what's so one of the things that's what people don't really think about. That European teams are obviously the better fraggers because Europe and FPP games or whatever. But there are some of these Chinese guys that are really damn deadly when it comes to taking fights. 2 knocks by Ark. Perfect push around, perfect double push around. Tisk gets the first, boom. King transitions over, gets the other one. Uran. I don't know. It sounds like urine, I know. But I don't know what I'm supposed to say if not urine. How would you say it if not urine? Uran? I don't know. In any case, you all know who I'm talking about. He ends up going down all of a sudden. It's a 2v2 for LGE and D7G. LGE played this one extremely passive. I don't think, how many kills do they have so far? Only 3. Whereas we have 12 kills so far on the side of D7G. One down for each. LG ends up winning. Great performance. Not a lot of kills, but still they managed to get the win with some kills added to it. Interesting game number 1. And that leads us to game numero 2. Of course it's TPP. We all love TPP. No, it's not. We went away from that a year ago, thank God, in competitive play. Well, kind of a year ago, actually, because Japan kept playing TPP half the games in their Pro League in Phase 1. No, it wasn't Phase 1. It was the Japanese Season 2, which was leading up to Phase 1. I miss TPP. Shotguns. Anyway, game number 2. Let's go straight into it. LG out early. LYG again out early, meaning multipower open. FPX south. And yet a military game. We've seen them before. And DAE, we've had this discussion before. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, Patrick. In the end of 18, they were playing half the games TPP and half the games FPP. DAE, they've had 3 military games so far. DAE has won 1, got a 2nd place and a 3rd place, I believe, in those games. So even though people say, oh, but you have to be able to do good and la-di-da when you're a military team and the circle goes melee, not always true. I mean, how many wins does Ratio Edge have on military? Far from every game, right? So in this case, it's just different. DAE plays military extremely well, and one of the things they do early is something you would never, ever see a European team do. Or, sorry, not European, because it could be CIS or African or Middle Eastern. So EMEA team. I want to see if they do the same. Now I kind of let you guys up to this, or like build up the anticipation. I just want to see if they actually keep the same splits that they did in the last week. Or yesterday, I mean, the day before. Timon goes up here. Aw, they're not keeping the same splits. Okay, so now they're focusing on the northern side. They have had a split that looked like this. One guy here, one guy here, one guy here, and one guy here. This is a split that they've had before. Like, we're talking while all the other teams are crashing in towards towards military, so Snufka Island. And they have had the strangest splits. I mean, in general, China do a lot of crazy splits, but just DAE on military games, they have been very, very, very interesting with the way that they've been splitting previously. Now, this time around is makes a little more sense. Timon is still a little far out from his teammates, can't really get help if anything happens, but that's just China. I mean, wait till we come over to Miramar, you'll see. They will take the splits and aggressively, like, no, that's the opposite. They will have the splits, but they'll be very quick to leave as well. They will keep as much as they can for as long as they can, but they're not going to fight too hard for it. D7G crash in, DAE comes over to help. Doesn't seem to work out for them, unfortunately. It does become a little bit of a stalemate with the opponents. They do survive, but only 2 guys alive. But again, so this case, they kind of get punished for that split because D7G crashing in towards him ends up getting them down to just 3 players alive, or 2 players alive, make that. So a little bit of an exception to what I said. I'm sorry. Of course, it always happens when I put it the other way. But normally you would see, and I think it's also because it's on military. Normally you would see if you have a team that is splitting, like, I don't even know. I'm just gonna draw random dots like this. Then as soon as this guy here hears a car in this area, doesn't even have to be them actually breaching him. As soon as he hears a car, he's like, nope, goes back down. So they will go very wide on their splits, but they will also leave extremely quickly. They're just like, you know what I mean? If they're gonna give it to us, we might as well take it. But then once teams start showing that they will not give it to them, then they will leave. It kind of makes sense, but it's just also very uncommon in the Western scene. So everyone is sticking north, at least for now. halfway through military, or like on the northern side. Everyone's expecting the circle to go in that direction. VG crossing with boats. Tianba doing the exact same thing. New circle is gonna pop, and we get a western shift. This is funny because there's a chance it goes back. There isn't really. Military base itself obviously is gonna, in these circles you always have to have somebody inside the base itself, just because it takes up such a big chunk of the circle. And we have this whole area which is practically unplayable, takes up quite a bit of landmass. You have the whole hillside that is unplayable once the compound is in. I mean, there's a lot of terrain you can only play if certain other positions aren't in the circle. You can't play this hilltop if, well, I mean, if any of these positions are in, to be honest. You cannot really play over here. You cannot play this whole backside of the hill if this compound is in. You cannot play this if, well, any of this is in. So there is a lot of areas that are open for a very, very, very long time in the game because they're simply too dangerous to go into. That's like suicide to go there. LGE, ARC, on the flip side, forcing to take fights on the outside the circle. Now the circle pops north, still got water in, which means that we know the next one is gonna shift away. Should center up somewhat on the yellow houses. LYG crossing from far up north. They've made their way across, trying to to hold their little, I guess you can, like, little forest area down here. On the southern side, Tianba now finally finding vehicles. Will make their rotation on in. You can see them coming in from the south. Go all the way around, cross through, and trying to crash up into the military base itself. They know the circle's going to shift south. Whether it's going to still include military island, they probably can't really tell, but they know it's going to shift south, and we'll see if they get something from that. 4 a.m., they stayed on the water. They didn't really need to do anything else. You can see with this shift up, do you really want to keep two sides of the road? I would probably argue, honestly, knowing that the next circle is going to shift away, that you would send these two guys up here rather than take these two guys down here. But once the vehicles came in, you see them crossing. Once they came driving towards them, and they realized, oh, this is gonna be a scary split to defend. Once they cross, they know they have to go help, and they run over immediately to do that. So this is going to be open. Of course, infantry, the perfect third-party team, wants to seize an opportunity and going up to engage on that. Funny how mid isn't taken. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the thing, right? As Killer says, I mean, these guys up here can't see it. This guy can't see it. These guys can't see it. And it's one of those positions that when you're at this point in the game, if you're sitting here, Luminous, they're not even going to consider trying to scout this because obviously there's going to be a team there. RNG, why would they go over there? Obviously there's a team there. It's one of those positions that you take for granted is taken already, so you don't go there. But sometimes, well, nobody does, and then it just stays open for the longest time until one team goes there and it's like, wait, what? Like, they're going and they're literally with their guns up trying to shoot stuff, but there's nobody to shoot, and they get super confused about it. FPX can scout it. Not well enough. I mean, they can see, they can sit up here. The thing is, once you go into this field, if there's players over on this side and you're in this field, turning around and going back is going to be extremely dangerous. And there could be people up here too, technically. They wouldn't really be smart to be in this situation. But this is a very dangerous field to drive through because you can't really do anything but drive when you're there. You can't stop anywhere. You just have to drive. If you go in from this side, you have to go out somewhere else. And, well, them having heard fights inside the city alongside new circle popping, you can't really scout up here. And even if you scout here, you can only see to this ridge line. And then they could have their cars parked on the back. You would never know. You can't see the backside of this compound from down here. So circle pops. FPX knows that there's teams in here. They decide to push underneath. It makes good sense to me because they have no way of scouting the yellows from in there. 4 a.m. they managed to wipe QM, but as you can see, infantry, great three-way position with Bolia looking further forward, trying to set up a potential rotation for themselves. 4 a.m. falls down towards the water. Not easy now. YTG is there to hold them off too. They're in all kinds of trouble. Try to rotate around forever. Leaves forever alone. Tries to make the run on forward. New circle is going to pop. And all these teams that were east just before, you can see how this becomes a bit of a cluster, a bit of a funnel. As we said, they're all getting funneled in, all getting sheep herded into death. And And RNG pushing up, try to hold them. Tianba is pushing around behind them, trying to third party. Illstars now going to be leaving out, trying to engage that. So 5 teams in an engagement on the eastern side, meaning that, well, infantry has all the room in the world on the west. New circle pops. FPX moves forward. They want to be the first to leave. They know there are still players inside the base. So if you can get up fast enough, they can be the ones, they can be the ones to contain what's inside. Smart play by them. 4 AM do go down in 9th, so no placement points for them. So far, not the best start for 4 AM to the day. Tianba gets fought off. FPX pushes up and over, but start taking casualties. They do manage to get all 4 back up on their feet, though. Now S-Star goes... Oh, well, that was open. Useful. He has to leave now, though. Yuchen is further below. Infantry... FPX, 2 of the better teams. L-Stars and Tianba, not so much. I mean, Tianba actually surprisingly high up the leaderboards. Let me just go see here as we speak. I don't remember exactly what placement they got, but they finished surprisingly high up the leaderboards. Considering me not really thinking they had done all that well. They finish in... Let me see. FPX got 3rd. Tianba got 8th place. So, I mean... Everything considered, they get late game a lot. They just never really find a whole lot of kills, and that's their issue. They never really find a whole lot of kills with the way that they're moving forward. Yeah, exactly. They just don't have the fragging power, it seems to me, because they manage to get to late game quite often, but they don't really manage to seize the wins. Phoenix pushing around the backside. Managing to get a kill, 4v1 now. Easy is all by himself, and they're just swiping. I mean, there's not a whole lot more to it. Phoenix played this one really well. And they were one of the first teams to cross too. They don't get a lot of kills, because as we could see, they were the team on the quiet side, alongside infantry. It was pretty much infantry and Phoenix that played the more quiet sides of the circle. And see, all the engagements happens in the east. The majority of their kills actually came from here. Once they rotated out of military, they didn't have a single kill yet. They didn't have a single kill. And now, well, they get the first. Infantry wipes one side, FPX wipes the other, and well, the rest is history. Also, just keep in mind that Yuchen, this guy, all by himself, from a wizard, kills the entirety of infantry. Did he nade his teammate? He must have naded his teammate. And then he gets him. Oh, okay, so Long survives, actually. Okay, so he almost 1v4s them. Almost. And infantry are the team that got 2nd place in the entire tournament. So pretty impressive by by Uchi. But in the end, that's the finish up to the game. Let's go on to the last Erangel game. Not of the day, not of the week, but of the entirety of the PCL. Game number 3. Water for me. Decent plane. FPX, we said they will go Novo or they will go Prim. So pretty straightforward jump for them. Eastern circle. So we go back out east once more. Now we've had an eastern finish. We've had a military finish. And we go east for the 3rd time. So all the 3 games, we don't get any west. We don't get any north. 2 areas we've been in a lot previously. This time around, it is out. And it's out to the east. QM split off. Wellness. Oh, this was the game that we accidentally started analyzing yesterday. This push from God V, or Wellness, whatever you want to call him, was interesting yesterday. Because he has to anticipate, with this plane, it's going to take a while for the Vici guys to get to the compounds. And yes, I know he gets looted early. And yes, I know he gets a bike. But there is no way that there is not going to be players in these areas this early on. And Wellness, he just runs in and dies. To me, that's a era that you rarely ever see a team like 4AM do. And what's really interesting about it is the fact that 4AM at this point hadn't really won the tournament yet. Like they hadn't secured anything yet, and they had 2 tough games to begin the day. So that was a start where you go, again, players down. Not a good start for him. And other teams are starting to really rack up points, right? So dangerous performances on the Erangel for him, for sure. DAE rotating in late on the bottom of your screens. Military team, they're not in a hurry. They know that there are so many teams in front of them. So why bother stress to get anywhere? FPX, they're going to rotate late. They do these rotations all the time. If you're going to be playing against FPX in any tournaments, you will know that most oftenly they will indeed rotate over. Circle goes north. And, well, this is a fun one. This is a fun one for two reasons. A, still plenty of water. B, look at the amount of teams that are on the southern side right now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. That's going to be a total of... It's not even a total of, because they only have 3. They only have 2 players alive. So it's approximately 50 players south. Approximately. 50 players down there in this direction. How the hell do you split this up when you have 11 players up here? A little more than 11, maybe more like 15, but doesn't matter. And a billion players down here. This road is yikes to have to transition on now that you know that all the compounds are taken. You have the whole forest area in here. So for all these teams that are coming in south, if anyone, like for example BA, if they settle here or settle in yellows, then one more team can go here. But for the teams to come, that's going to be so hard to rotate. And again, this is an area where if you're not inside the shack or if you're not playing the Kingwin dip, you're going to be so screwed. And I would have, I mean, it doesn't really happen in the Chinese league, but I would love to see a team read this. And for example, if you're RNG and you haven't already committed in, if you're sitting on the edge somewhere, either wrap around like that or go all the way around. Nobody does. Everyone tries to crash in and it becomes a complete YOLO fest. Somehow though, we only lose 3 players. And that's what's really surprising to me. Early on, we only lose 3 players. So despite the chaos, look at this, look at the amount of teams rotating in. Despite everyone driving at the same time, we lose very few players. And what's insane to me is the fact that VG, despite this happening on top of them, still keep this split. I mean, this is practically one spot. But not to anticipate anyone crashing here, that's very dangerous. LYG keeping this split in arguably 2 of the better compounds in this circle. Very dangerous. So, again, if you're a European team or European player, honestly, if you're any team that is not Chinese watching this, even if you are a Chinese team, punish those splits, because they will split very, very often. They will split all over the place. There's a good chance that you can get some kills by punishing it. It's just about how to read it. That's going to be the difficult thing. VG push over. They all go into the forest. Take the J compound or L compound, whatever you want to call it. Tianba plays the northern side. LYT still in a 2-way split in the center of the map. Who would ever, in circle 3, play this split? Very few teams would do that. I can tell you that much. But LYG is one of them. They know the circle is going to come to them, and now they can make the rotation on over. One gets shot, but they do manage to get back up on their feet. 4 guys alive. And now, of course, the majority of teams will be wrapping in from this side. You can't wrap up this way. It's like this whole area is just super open, and you know there's still players in all these compounds. So if you're sitting down here now, you pretty much have to go around this way, or just like anything that goes up this hill is going to be the direction you're going in. Which of course forces a cluster on the southern side with all these teams sitting on top of each other. There aren't a lot of these bad splits working out because the other teams... Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, Varg. This only works, and that's why I keep... When people ask me if China is going to be one of the best regions in the PGC, this is one of those situations where the good Chinese teams... Some of them might only really have success because they do certain things that works in their region, in their meta, whatever you want to call it. That's why, for example, some of the American teams who dominate their region, then they come in a global tournament and they choke or they don't do good. And everyone's like, oh my god, why are they so bad now that they're playing against other teams? If you have, let's say you're a team that wins every single game for a whole season, 96 wins in PEL in one season, and you just, you know exactly what to do, you're feeling hot, everything is working. All of a sudden, you go from playing 96 games to now having to play 12 games or something like that. And on day one, you realize, holy fuck, nothing that we had success doing works now. And then you kind of have to reinvent the wheel. And some teams just can't do that fast enough. So, no, there's one more week. That's one more week. So it's always tricky like that. It's extremely tricky to really figure those things out. The NA teams also happen to have a month break before. Ah, yeah. That, I mean, yeah, that, some would argue that gives them more time to prepare. I don't know. I mean, it's different. I hope that for the next season we will have everyone play the same amount of games and same amount of teams and all this stuff. Right now, I'm glad that we have the super settings, so they play under the same rule set. But there's a lot of stuff that could still be improved. As we can see, the center, the donut in the middle, there's nothing you can really play, especially not with all the compounds still in. So that's going to be left for open, or left for no one, I guess you can say. I don't think it's nothing to do with rusty, to be honest. I don't think it's nothing to do with being rusty. It's just something about them being used to do something, and then they get thrown into a situation where it doesn't work, and then it doesn't matter. You can't prepare for everything. But it's a team in global events. It's the teams that are the best at adapting that wins the tournaments. You cannot just tunnel vision on your own strategy. Sometimes you're forced to change things up. D7G try to push in. They're gonna go down. Not gonna work out for them this time around. Tianba on the northern side again, finding a way into the late game with well, this time three guys alive. LYG as well, finding themselves into the late game. Haven't really seen them a whole lot. Actually, these three teams, neither of them have really had a whole lot in the late game. So interesting finish, but that's because, as you can see, these three teams were the ones that were in the north early. They were up here from very early on. And it was all the other teams that were forced to fight once the circle forced them out this way. That caused the cluster. All the teams go down. And in the end, the three teams with the northern positions can now start splitting out and taking more control. Circle goes to Jianba. They get 2 players knocked though. Box pushes over, maps to follow, and they end up getting the kills. Great plays by LYG, but they should never have gotten that far. I mean, in my book at least, this split should have been punished 15 years ago. Teams should have realized there's only 2 guys here, or there's only 2 guys here, and no one reacted to it. So so interesting game where I think had it been in any other situation, any other region, LYG would not have been allowed. I'm not saying they wouldn't have won the game because they could just have killed people, but I don't think LYG would have been allowed to keep the split that they ended up doing. Let's game number 3. We're gonna head on over to game number 4. Let me just change that. Boink. Game number 4. Pretty decent playing. Everyone can go where they want. As we've talked about before, not a whole lot of teams go down to the southern island. In PL, I think we have 2 more teams at least on the southern island than what we do here. And this plane is, well, it's not going to guarantee the southern island, but it's gonna say this is probably where it's gonna go. No guarantees so far. It could go way up north and then it would go in this direction. But odds are that it is indeed going to go to the south. BA crosses over. Let me just, actually, I can fix this real quick. There you go. That works. So obviously, as we can see here, most teams are making their way down. L-Stars has this loot spot that TSM normally does on the other side. And they'll push down towards the compound. They'll hold the bridge rather than sit up there. Expecting, again, most teams are indeed expecting the circle to go south anyway. So that's what they're going to do. YGG being held off by BA. Fights escalate on the other side as well. And we haven't really seen too many bridge camps per se. But BA set up one in the south, and LG were waiting on the other side. Now the circle goes north. Again, next circle has to exclude water. And this is where you can try and do the math. But most likely, it's going to go down here. And I think everyone is anticipating that too. LYG super late, FPX crazy late, BA trying to push over and trying to hold off FPX will be coming in. Obviously they don't know that they're down there because they're running. And oops, sorry. And RNG still on the northern side. Royals never give up. Had a really good start of the tournament, but then kind of fell apart after that. Circle's gonna pop, and of course it's gonna go exactly where everyone expected it to, down south. Now it's a matter of how the swear word do you get down there if you aren't there already. QM trying to cross by the bridge, not going to happen most likely. DAE, who is currently sitting, I believe, in second place at this point, trying to make a run up from where they are. D7G, of course, sitting dead center. They're all kinds of happy with that position. BA down south has to push in. FPX managed to wrap around, but they're running straight into a fight over here. Fortunately, the team that they run into is a two-man team, so they decide to disengage. Ahang and ZZ. Up north, OMG still 4 guys up and alive. LYG crosses over top. Circle goes out east. And for those of you guys don't know, the terrain here is uphill, downhill by the road. You're not going to go into ruins at this point just because it's suicidal. And then you have the whole downhill towards the Painan area with like an uphill position over here. Infantry, DAE forced to fight. They were waiting. I mean, infantry loots Painan, and they just sit there and wait for teams to come towards them. They realize DAE is pushing in the open, or pushing through the city, taking them out. Again, this is much easier to analyze when you have a an actual terrain overview as well, like the first person views from them, because they do some very interesting things as far as fights, as far as the way they use their smokes, but we can't really analyze any of that when it's on a map stream like this. So that's why if you're watching these for the first time, normally the Sanhok game tends to be, since it's so much more fight based and that less rotation based, it tends to be more what do you say? We tend to go over them a little faster because we can't really go in depth with all those cluster fights that end up happening when we don't have the terrain vision. LYG carrot and maps forced to make the runaround. They're gonna get taken out to the blue. 4am lose 1. Still alive on the southern side though. Good game for them. So now L-Stars, Luminous, they've had a really tough time so far. They did manage to get a good placement earlier, but they have a really tough time so far. And I believe they also get, I don't know if they don't get last place, but something down there, like 13th, 14th place overall. D7G, they already have themselves a really good game earlier today, a second place, and now 4am pushing forward, gets 1, gets 2. They have to anticipate this push, and you can see Wellness, or God-V, whatever you want to call him, he's holding it, he's ready for it. So they get 2, immediately resets down south, completely run over, and they get taken down. Nice reaction by them, like understanding the threat potential of the compound, but D7G just plays it extremely well. 1 more down, 2 more down. D7G wins the game with 7 kills. So not an insane game for them, and also they looted ruins. So, well, yeah, they didn't really have to go anywhere. They're one of the 2 teams that land on this island. They are here from the start of the game, and the game ends with the death circle just outside their compound. They never had to go anywhere, and by this, like at this point, they have only 3 kills on the teams that came in late behind them. So a very simple game for D7G, but still managed to do the push up towards the compound when they had to, managed to get the win when they had to. It's a good game for them overall nonetheless. Let's go on over to Miramar for the final 2 games of this tournament. Game number 5. Eastern Plain means that some teams might not be able to go where they want to. Monte is open, Poso open, La Copraria, the entire northern side is open. And also means that, I mean, normally the alternative teams have to go into these spots is somewhere southeast, which means you'll see a lot more teams down in this area than what we normally would. Keep that in mind. Circle goes north, and this means that the entire western push in that direction is now going to come most likely from the south instead, unless if all these teams decide to wrap around this way. Does that make sense? Now it's going to come from down here rather than up here. So all the spots up here will be completely open and up for grabs. Because all the other teams, like at least most of them, are forced to play it from the other side of the map. The teams are going to rotate forward. 4 AM sitting pretty well in it. They loot Hacienda. Kind of the TSM-esque split up in this area of the map. Now let's see some of the splits that these teams will do early on. D7G splitting off pretty decent, pretty standard San Martin and the plane crash compound split. I don't know if that's actually the name for it, but they do that. This split you don't see too often. Arc sitting with 2 guys north of Picado and the other 2 isolated in a 2-man compound down there. Not very often you see that split. Practically never. A slopes. It's so frustrating that S's now look completely like A's on the Twitch chat. QM pushes up towards Hacienda. Never get to anyone taken down, but they do manage to secure a kill. Like they never lose a player, but not a whole lot comes off of it. Circle center is San Martin. That's always tricky. I mean, these circles are always so annoying when you have a circle center being a city, because teams try to maneuver around those. Teams never want to go to the cities before they absolutely have to. But if you look west now, Elstars, Tianba, OMG. I mean, the OMG does have a player inside the circle, and YTG and ARC as well. ARC has a position to go to. YTG, them not wanting to go to San Martin. What do you do then? Do you bounce around this way? Do you try and wrap around the south? South has this big downhill push, so most likely I would assume it's going to be a push in that direction. But how many teams are up here, and how much can you really scout and make your way forward into? It normally ends northeast of San Martin. Well, I mean, technically this one can go in a lot of different directions. We've seen a lot of games go out to the east. We've had endings in San Martin. Many different things can happen. Infantry pushing in from the south realize that there's no reason to try and wrap around the other way. Luminous Stars say we're not going to take part in anything. Wrap all the way around. I don't know if they actually go to Minas or if they just hug Graveyard, but they wrap in that direction. LGE, they pushed over the top to try and take water treatment. See Luminous, they're coming in over that side up towards Minas. Get some vision, try and scout further forward. They might see themselves a compound open and available down below. And now this shift happens. We just went from a city, high ground position, not a city obviously, but crashable terrain, big compounds. Hacienda can easily house 2 teams, maybe even 3 if they split up wisely. I mean, in those situations. And now we go into the northeastern side where you have field, open hill that you cannot play in when all the compounds are still in play. There's so much area within this circle that is extremely hard to play, if not near impossible. And we have 1, 2, not 3 really, because LG has 1 player in, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. Half the teams are not inside this circle, and they need to somehow get inside it. Yes, the southern teams, L-Stars, can just go down here. Infantry should be able to push further forward as well, maybe crash something. But just in general, this is really not an easy place to have to rotate into. Mini goes on a journey up north. He's forced to run. I don't know exactly how he survived that. FPX tried to do somewhat of a gatekeep on the western side, like northwestern side of the circle. Mini goes down. CC stays alive on the north. YTG as well, miles out into the blue now, has to make that rotation. Then circle is north, so they could wrap around that way. But what do you play from here? That's another thing. What do you play from here? What can you do in this situation? And yes, VG, very good position right now. And their benefit is that A, teams will most likely not crash through the field. And B, if a team comes north trying to push down towards you, first of all, you'll probably hear the vehicles. And B, you will be in a position where when they're driving down, other compounds and other teams will most likely be shooting at them. If anyone comes in here, they could be shot at from like multiple other directions. So they have a pretty covered position. They can't really do a whole lot from it. Like they can't scout or move anywhere, but at least they're safe. They have the compound and the cover, which is good. Arc trying to make the rotation in from the south. They end up going down. D7G plays the dips on the other side. There's really not a whole lot to play here. QM, they know they have to leave. So they have to make the rotation on over. Wu Fang tries to hold their rotation. They have to go play hay bales. Not optimal by any means, but in situations of needs, you need to do what you can to make a play. Luminous sitting on the eastern side, trying to stay put. Now the circle goes south, and yes, OAM can still technically play this, but it's miles out on the edge. And now is when you'll start seeing teams go into the fields. Because, first of all, the hilltop advantage spot is out. The only compound, like the only spot that can really advantageously see you is over here. And yes, you can be spotted from areas up here as well. But every time they will peek to look into the field from anywhere, there'll be other people shooting at them alongside you, of course, if you shoot back at them. So now we'll see more and more teams maybe play the fields, also just because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams are not actually inside the circle yet. So they will have to try and crash into something. Wellness, try to hold off, or try to prevent LGE from crashing in, but CC is there. Kind of a frustrating opponent to have to go up against, but they do manage to take him down, only losing one player. It's unfortunate to have to lose a player in that situation, but still, I mean, and again, look how much teams are playing on the edges. Nobody, despite it kind of being an option at this point, nobody wants to go into the field before they absolutely have to. Everyone is looking for something else to play. 4 a.m. on the south, they know for a fact that this compound is going to get shifted out from, and once they have dealt with that, once they know for a fact that no one is left up here, that would also most likely mean that this entire side is clear, which means they can now go play the shacks on the other side. Sego immediately moves over, not the shacks, but like the hay bale stacks or whatever you call it. They can play that. They have the little dip over on the other side they can play from, and all these players, as much as they might be visible, like as much as Forever and Lou might be visible to these guys, they need to focus on each other. Like Vici cannot sit up here and start shooting in this direction because they know there's a team right over here in LYG, so they need to deal with them first. New circle pops, goes down towards Sego, so nice shift for 4 a.m. But again, no guaranteed win because you have Lou and Forever on the back foot of the circle with 4 players still alive for VG. Sego goes down, that's the center spot gone. They will have to cross that road eventually. Carrot tries to come in, not gonna happen. 4 a.m. pushing further forward. Knocks, smokes of course, being thrown everywhere. And they need a knock now. In order for 4 a.m. to really claim this one, they have the circle, like they have the dot. They need a knock on one so they can make it a 2v2 or 2v2 fight. As long as they can keep them at bay on the edge. You can see a 77 is caught on a what do you call it, a hay bale. You have Milo on the shack, and you have Vama on the hay bales as well. Milo goes down, gonna go down to blue, gets the flush in. Vama goes down. And this is just a really, really good hold by 4 a.m. They never allow for them to transition out. Now it's a 1v1. Forever versus 77. Connected, goes down. So 4 a.m. loses that game. They had a good hold. It was a 3v2 in, I guess you can say, in favor of Vici. But good game from Vici. Good, really good. I really like the way that they held this by 4 a.m. But 4 a.m. end up losing the game. And Vici, actually, despite everyone thinking, I would have thought they had more kills up here too. They only end up getting 7. 4 a.m. on the other hand, they get 9. So decent game for both teams. 9 kill game for 4 a.m. and 7 kills for Vici. Good performance from both. We had 10 kills. And we got 9 kills as well from LYG. They were harvesting on the southeast side as well. Yeah, exactly. They played it really smart. Vici. The way that they rotated out, they see, okay, the pressure is up here. If we can, like, if they can just keep shooting at teams that want to go down in this direction and force them to stay, look at how much they're shooting up in this direction, right? Every single time we see a line here, it's them connecting a shot or killing someone in this direction. The more they can kill up here, the safer they know they are down here. And you can see as soon as they get the knocks, boom, they immediately push up to third party. So really, really smart plays by VG all the way through, honestly. So that was the second to last game, and now we go to the final one, the deciding game for who would win the PCL Phase 3. Southern Plain, northern destinations not that easy to reach, but should be doable. But it does mean, as we can see, plenty of room down here. FPX, they're gonna looting out on the east side, and actually 4 AM other than FPX, it will be the most northern team in this situation. Pretty open circle. We don't really have to draw anything up in this circle. There's a whole hell of a lot up for grabs. Obviously, some of the priority spots to go to would be the shack, or the church area, and some of those compounds in the middle are good too. You just have to make sure. I mean, the most important thing when playing these compounds in the middle is that you make sure to park your vehicles where you can use them. If you end up losing vehicles in these compounds and circle shifts away from you, might as well just go down to the blue, because odds are you're not gonna make it out of there alive, especially not early on in the game. Arc sitting in a 3-way split makes pretty good sense. You have good vision from there, and they know for a fact that church was taken, so no reason to contest it. Royals never give up. Decent split for them as well, holding off a good position. 4 AM pushing over the hilltop. They don't want to drive through Picado on the other side. Normally you see, or oftentimes you see with Hacienda splitting teams, that either they'll just backtrack the team that loots Picado, or they go up on this side in these circles, but they go up this way instead. So then scout forward, then make the rotation on down around Picado. Vici rotating all the way around Los Leones. And new circle pops. Boom. We've seen these circles 1 billion, million, quadrillion times before. This road is going to be the center point of what's flat on the northern side and what's up this way on the southern side. Like all this is uphill in this direction. All of this stuff is up this way. So now you have to figure, do we want to be down with a chance of having to push up? Or do we want to be up with a chance to have to push down? Of course, down here is the terrain is completely different, but yeah, technically yes, mister, but at the same time, if that team that drives by are 4 guys alive, then odds are they'll probably just stop their vehicles and kill that one guy. Then he might knock a guy, but there's a big chance that he would get killed too, and then it's not really worth it. And especially in Chinese League, they value staying alive with 4 so much. Like, you rarely ever see anyone crash early game and stuff like that. They rarely even hard contest each other because they all value staying alive early so much more. So you just don't really see it too often. DAE, very nice split, 2 high value compounds in this situation. Arc still keeping their 2-way split. QM, I want to say quick math all the time, but QM Gaming having a decent split of their own up on the eastern side, or center, I guess you can say. And OMG, a little further split apart than I would have thought. I would have thought they maybe, instead of playing inside this building, just play 2 on top, or 1 on top here, 1 inside and then 1 over, rather than allow for teams to potentially get inside the middle. Now the circle goes south, and if you're a northern team, in this case, you think, fuck. I mean, if you're 4 AM, if you're YTG, if you're... I mean, ARG is kind of in already, but not really. How do you rotate on this? Having to wrap around will take you a lot of time, and where do you go? I mean, Chumacera, that's not where you want to play from. So that's not really an option, unless you want to bounce all the way around. You're going into the rocks here, which you cannot really rotate through either. So if you want to rotate this way, you pretty much have to go all the way here to then go up from below. Unless if you want to go into Chumacera. The other way, open field, that prevents a lot of rotations, and then you're into Los Leones all of a sudden. That's not going to make sense either. So you're pretty much forced to go linear with the circle and try and maneuver your way in from there. Now Tianba, they want to go center. They know that DAE are split, and it's ironic because normally it's DAE who's the team that punishes other teams for splitting, but DAE manages to live through that one quite well. Actually, they manage to, I believe, they keep 3 guys alive in that situation. In 4 AM, only 1 player left alive. Wellness forced to go on his own. You see, they were trying to rotate too, but YTG, instead of rotating in, decided to try and hold them on their rotation. So all of a sudden, Wellness or GodV is all by himself. Now the circle does shift back north, which means that that the church is going to be the center. We've seen these circles so many times before. And one of the main things with this circle you can say is that from down here, if you don't have this, there's nothing you can play. There's a little dip here you can play, but you can't really peek anything or play anything outward from that position. You're isolated to just those few spots you can play. 3 teams now fighting this, and that's what we're just talking about. If you're here, this circle pops, don't want to go into the city. The only thing you can play from here, the only thing you can do here, pretty much, is crashing into this. And that's why exactly what we see happening. FPX crash in. BA comes in with 2 players. Make that 3. Comes in a little later. Took a while, but finally does get there. Wellness by himself figures out that an entirety of RNG is in the compound. 4 AM goes down. Hectic game for 4 AM, but they go down, and now everything is left on the line for the other teams to take away from them. QM trying to crash in towards the church. Again, this is unplayable as long as this is in. So the only team that can only really play anything from down here is FPX. And with this hill position still in, you can't really sit down here either. So church is valuable, the compound is valuable, and if you can be the only team up on this side, you're going to be in a good spot too. But right now, FPX has full control of pretty much all of this. Next circle pops. FPX still in on the compound, even more so. Now look at how many teams just got shifted out. Look at how many teams just got completely rickrolled by this circle shift. Not very optimal whatsoever. FPX try to hold. They know for a fact. Like, they know, okay, we have these VG guys up here. If we don't deal with them, like, if any team, for whatever reason, comes crashing us, because again, there's nothing you can play here. There's literally nothing to play in this entire spot, and we have 4 teams up here, right? So they have 2 options up here. Either they crash there, they crash here, or they just make smoke plays and try and hide on the top. But if one team crashes us here, we know for a fact that these guys might want a third party. So we need to deal with them before potential crash comes in. So Mini is reserved to hold the compound, while the other guys... Well, actually, Mini goes up to help. It's Xiao2 is reserved to hold the compound while they go up and clear out. So FPX gets the win, or gets the kills. Now they can stay on the side and make sure with Xiao2 that the third party doesn't come in. Very, very, very nice. Yeah, exactly. Very nice positioning by FPX. So not only the positioning, but just the understanding of what they need to do in the moment. Minmi comes down, Xiao2 stays, Mercy, Minmi goes over, wipe the east side so you can focus on the west. You see, as soon as they get them down and the circle shifts, now they know, as long as we make sure there's nobody else on our side of the road, we will have all of this to play from. And that's exactly what happens. New circle pops, and they now have the entire dip to play. As long as Xiao2 can make sure that Carrot and Maps don't get to cross the road, boom, they don't, because they got the help from above. As long as they can make sure they don't get to cross, they can play it. Their main rule is just from even earlier. As soon as they get the compound for themselves, because obviously when you have opponents in your building, that's what you need to focus on. But as soon as they have that under control, now they just need to be the only team on this side of the road. If there's one team here, it can fuck up everything for them. If there's a team up here, it can fuck up everything. If there's a guy on the rock or the shack, whatever that is over here, it can fuck it up for them. If there are people in the dip, that can fuck things up. They need to know 100% that they're the only team on their side of the road. And that's exactly what they do. Push up, now they can spread out, take control. They know that the church have to fight each other. You have both RNG and QM in there. Long, forced to make a play. He cannot cross over that side because he can't see anything, so that would just be suicide. Has to go the other way. And now it's a 3-man QM against FPX. And, I mean, we can put it this way. This is the dot. These guys are in a building. What can you do? Push up, contain, dead. Great game from FPX. They end up winning the game, but not only that, they end up also getting 14 kills. So very, 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 very impressive way to finish. And just to show you the overall leaderboard after that game. So 4 AM go down early. They end up tying for first place with infantry. They end up tying first place with infantry. FPX, Fun Plus Phoenix, the team that won the game, they're only 6 points out. Had they, I mean, obviously it's not easy to get a 20 kill game, but they were up there, right? Very, very impressive by them. And then LGE, I'm still not sure exactly how LGE manages to get up here with a 7. No, wait, that's not true. With a, I mean, it's just placement points for them in my book. It really, really hurt FPX their day 4. They only get 24 points on the 4th day. That really, really, really hurt them. Same thing with infantry. Day number 1, really tough day for them. But nonetheless, that was actually the entirety of what do you say? The entirety of PCL. Chinese teams are done with, and if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. See you next time.